Hollywood, California. Nowhere in the world is there a city where a greater premium is placed on the perfect body, the perfect face, beauty, glamour. Well, tonight, you're going to meet a woman who had all those attributes and more. A model and actress from Great Britain who came to Hollywood with the age-old dream of becoming a star. Well, that dream was suddenly shattered. Her beautiful face horribly disfigured in a car accident. It's a story of one woman's determination to reclaim her beauty and her dream. An amazing journey of discovery. Even as a child, Louise Ashby seemed to possess that certain something.
When you're a baby, you need
At just 18 months, baby Louise filmed her first commercial in her native Australia. By the age of 4, now living in England, Louise already had stars in her eyes.
The teacher said to the whole class, "Now look at Louise, she is talented," and that was it. I'd been told I was good at something, so I ran home and told my mum, "I'm going to be an actress, I'm going to be an actress."
What were you doing at that age?
It was just acting exercises and, okay, Louise pretend to be a tree, and I was a really good tree.
Eventually, the baby would blossom into a beauty, and show business seems inevitable. After all, Louise's mother, Linda King, has a successful career as a model and actress. Her father, John, manages pop music acts. But in 1986, Linda King, by now divorced and raising 3 kids on her own, is diagnosed with leukemia. Louise, just a teenager, stops working to take over the care of her family.
It was a long, difficult illness.
She had it for 6 years. It was incredibly painful. And for somebody with 3 kids who are young, you know, she was terrified. And she never, ever let us believe that she was going to die.
After her mother's death, Louise's siblings move in with her dad. And Louise makes a move of her own to Los Angeles, plunging back into her career with renewed purpose.
Oh my God, I was so excited. I was so excited that I finally had a new opportunity, a new life. A friend of mine knew a casting director at HBO, so I went to meet with her, and we had a really good meeting, and she said that she saw me as leading lady material. I got an apartment within 2 weeks. I got myself an agent. It was really a time when I thought, this is it. It's my time now.
But Louise's life would change dramatically, tragically, on October 5th, 1992. It is dusk. In her convertible with Charlotte Chatton, an old friend from London, Louise picks up some Chinese takeout on Sunset Boulevard and then starts driving back to her apartment.
It was a typical Californian, hot, clear day.
You had the top down?
Had the top down, good friend in the car, music playing, food in the back, ready for an evening of movies.
But then, seemingly out of nowhere, a car appears.
Coming the wrong way?
Yeah, he was coming the wrong way. He just barreled straight into the front of us. And I shot up out of the seat into the corner of the windshield.
Louise's car is a crumpled heap. Charlotte is winded and shaken, but okay. She turns her attention to Louise.
I said, "Oh, my eye, my eye." And then she looked across to the windshield and she saw a whole bunch of flesh on the corner of the windshield. And then she saw that the whole of the left of my head was completely covered in blood and my eye was hanging out and it was just crushed. And then she started screaming.
More than an hour after the accident, Louise is brought here to the emergency room at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. She is barely clinging to life. Her head so badly damaged that one doctor compared it to a shattered light bulb.
I've seen some incredible traumas, but it's definitely one of the worst that I've ever seen.
Dr. David Alessi, a head and neck surgeon, is part of the team that will perform almost 12 hours of emergency surgery on Louise.
As you lift up the skin, you can see that all the bone underneath it was completely fractured, and brain was just coming out around that, just like toothpaste, basically.
At Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, surgeons work to preserve precious brain and bone tissue, trying desperately to keep Louise Ashby alive.
You were dying, close to death.
Yeah, very. They thought I was either going to die or be a vegetable or be paralyzed.
It takes 4 days for Louise to emerge from her coma. Her father and her best friend, Emma Gold, have flown in from London. And on the walls of this unfamiliar hospital room are some very familiar pictures.
My modeling pictures were all around the intensive care unit.
What was that about?
That was so the doctors could see how I used to look. I kept saying, what's going on, what's going on? And Emma said, oh, you know, we're just trying to decorate the room.
In fact, doctors used Louise's pictures to prepare for a second operation. More delicate work on her brain, her skull, and her face. It's a marathon session, 22 hours. The operation is a success, but the doctors are unable to restore sight to Louise's left eye. Her sense of smell and taste are gone. And for the first time since the accident, she demands to see her face. The face that once held so much promise. Louise's friend, Emma Gold.
So I took her into the bathroom, and a few of her friends were in the other room, and her father. And Emma shut the door behind me. You know, the lights were really, really bright. And then I looked up and looked in the mirror, and it was pretty scary. I had no hair, this huge, thick scar. My head was swollen to, like, this size of a watermelon, so my actual facial features were tiny. She just collapsed to the floor and sobbed and sobbed. I just said, oh my God, I'm a monster. I wasn't going to say, oh, don't worry, because this was one time in your life. You couldn't actually say it's all going to be fine.
Louise spends nearly a month in the hospital. Her face is so disfigured that those around her suggest the unthinkable, that she give up on her dream. Sporting an eye patch and plenty of attitude, Louise will have none of that.
Your face was a wreck, and this is a business, this is Hollywood. This is a business of beautiful faces.
I was called in for a couple of meetings, and of course when the agents saw me, they were like, oh my God, what is this girl doing here? And they said, you do realize you look nothing like your picture? And I said, yes, I'm fully aware of that, but I will be fixed. And in the meantime, I was just wondering if you could set me up for, you know, I could do Star Trek or I could do horror movies. And I was absolutely serious.
And what would they tell you?
Why don't you come back and see us when you get fixed?
The woman who once drew attention because she was pretty was suddenly the object of rude stares. But Louise would not let shame or embarrassment get the best of her. She had discovered something deeply revealing about herself and about beauty.
When I looked in the mirror, one thing that did strike me that was strange was, even though I didn't look the same, I felt the same. So it was then that I realized that, you know, it's what's on the inside that's important.
She would need plenty of inner strength, especially when one plastic surgeon told her her case was hopeless. It was then that Louise turned to highly regarded plastic surgeon, Dr. Henry Kawamoto.
She was dejected.
Very, very, very depressed, actually. And you can understand why. You can understand why. I mean, her future face, everything was just taken away from her in that brief instant.
And he gave me a hug, and I started crying, and he said, I want you to know it's going to be okay. I'll do what I can.
The windshield post hit this area here and just pushed everything, drove everything down and back.
To rebuild Louise's face, Dr. Kawamoto located major bone fragments around her left eye and cheek and then returned them to their original position. He used pieces of Louise's skull to replace bone that could not be salvaged. Tiny plates and screws made of titanium held those pieces of bone together and in place.
It's almost like building something, like a house.
Her face was under construction.
You might say that, yeah. Sort of a rehab. You might want to do.
Louise had her last operation 18 months ago.
That's a screw?
That's a screw. I'm pretty sure that's a screw.
Today, her face has been almost completely restored, a miracle of modern medicine held together by 238 separate pieces of metal.
Is it tough going through metal detectors?
When I had my first few surgeries, I would go to the airport, I would go off, And the woman would say, oh, you know, come back here, and she'd have the thing, and I'd say, no, it's in my head. And she'd go, no, honey, it's in your boots. And I'd say, no, honey, it's in my head. And I'd put my head through the machine, and I'd go, wee, wee, and she's like, okay, go through, you know.
She calls you her savior.
Oh, I think that word is way overdone.
When you look at her now compared to where she was when she came in here, quite a difference.
I think it's one that patients deserve, right?
These days, Louise Ashby is back before the cameras, chasing her dream. It's been a 9-year odyssey, 10 operations, total medical costs, $1.5 million. A book about her journey, Magic of the Mask, has just been published in Britain with an excerpt in this month's American edition of Marie Claire magazine. Louise says the accident and her recovery have taught her many lessons about living for the moment, the importance of family and friends. And the ordeal has also taught her a lesson about Hollywood and the profession that she says places too much value on pretty faces.
This is $1 million face.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Was it worth it, spending so much money?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But people watching this might say, real beauty is within.
Beauty
Why
is
spend
within.
so much money on the physical?
Because I'm an actress. And Hollywood doesn't accept the beauty within. Somebody watching a movie and seeing an actress isn't going to go, okay, well, her face is really messed up, but I bet she's beautiful within. I didn't want to look in the mirror and see what I saw anymore. It's very difficult to look in the mirror and see that every day. It's very difficult to put a mask on every single day. You feel like you're hiding something. And I didn't want to hide anymore.